Dee, can you hear me?
Oh, I can now.
Okay. I had to pull out my laptop, but now I can't see everybody. So let's see here. Participant.
Congratulations, Jennifer. I heard about your trip.
Thank you. He's so beautiful. It's great. Now, can you see me?
I cannot. I did before, but not now. There you are.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
It's funny, I can't see anybody else.
The mayor's just stepped out of the room. I don't see Spencer.
All right, well, maybe once everybody gets on here, I should be able to see. It looks like I should be able to see Jeremy, but
Yeah, I see him.
I see you too.
Uh-oh.
There's Jeremy. I'm only seeing one person at a time. Maybe it's because this Newark thing's up. I don't know. I got no idea.
You're not gonna see anybody yet.
No.
Hello.
Hey, Jeff.
Everybody hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
Awesome.
Hi, Don.
Hey. Hi, Jeremy.
Ah,
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. Not bad.
Can't really see all. I see one at a time.
yes.
Up in the top right-hand corner, there's a button that says you could go to grid view, and grid view will let you see all the people who are currently on.
Virtual
Grid
back.
view?
Grid view, maybe under my meeting settings. I'm on my iPad. Does that matter?
Oh, yeah, the iPad might have a different look than the desktop.
Yeah, I'm on my iPad too, and I don't see anything that. 'Cause
Okay.
when we did this, I got to see everybody, but I'm not sure how I did that.
I had grid view earlier and I don't have that option now.
You'll be able to see everybody when we stop sharing the screen in
Oh.
about 5 minutes.
Then everybody will come up that way.
Then everybody will come up, and then I've got a flag that'll show when we do the pledge.
Oh, I was going to just walk outside and show you my flag in the yard, so that'll be just as well.
There, you don't have to go anywhere.
I
All
wondered
right.
how we were going to do that.
Yeah, I was just going to show you a picture of my flag.
There you go.
Hey, Dee, is this working out okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Uh,
good.
David's due to be back in. He's got a computer, and then we've got the big screen on.
Oh, great.
Anna, just
Yeah, this
got
is nice.
2 words, 1 word for you.
I'm sorry?
Shaveclub.com.
Say again?
I said, I just got 1 word for you.
What?
Shaveclub.com.
That's funny. You don't like this?
Oh, you look good anyway, you look.
Oh, yeah, you should keep
Yeah,
it.
there we go. I don't know. It's starting to bug me. It won't be too much longer.
Is Janine on yet?
And I got the Knicks.
No, Jennifer, she's not yet.
So you better get ready, Jennifer.
Let me check, see what's happening.
We got the backup.
That's right.
So during committee, we had some people on the chat wanting the code. So when we give the code out for public hearing, I'm gonna stay monitoring the participants so that we make sure we don't have any unwanted guests.
Perfect. Now I give them the call number, the meeting ID, and the meeting password for the public hearing, correct?
Yes, yep, and there will be you'll have a graphic that'll pop up as well
Okay.
for that,
Are you gonna do that during caucus or just right before the public hearing?
right before the public hearing.
Okay. I might say something about that in caucus, that we're gonna do it right before the public hearing.
Okay.
Spencer, Janine can't get on. She doesn't have the right ID. Can you send her that link with this meeting ID and password?
Yeah, I sent it to her once already today. Hold on.
Wrong ID. Wonder, I'm thinking
It's
this.
hard to get good help.
Ellen, I think you did a fine job.
Oh, I think the committee, was it different than council, the ID
Yeah,
situation?
yes, yep.
Yes.
Put that Clemson flag down, Sassen.
He specifically put that up, right there behind him.
He's got the mute button on.
Yeah.
We
he's
can
got
hear
his
it.
car-
You can't hear him.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey,
Oh, I
how
don't know
are
what
you?
you did. I don't know what you did, but you're on my full shot. All I see is you now on my full screen.
I think when
Oh, great.
the person talks, the full screen comes up at that
Oh.
person.
Okay. You're scaring me.
Review. What'd you say, honey? What'd you say?
Hey, Don,
Oh, there's Ryan.
Hey,
in
Doug.
the upper right-hand corner, you should see a thing that says speaker view. If you turn that off, then it won't jump to the person that's speaking.
Okay.
All I see in the right-hand corner of yours, Doug, is something ugly, orange and purple.
What'd you say it says, Doug?
Up in the upper right-hand corner, there should,
Yeah.
like where the icon is, a full screen, next to it, it says speaker view.
Hmm.
If that's on, it'll jump to only the person that's talking.
You want to be in gallery view if you can.
You just turned off your video too, Don.
Great. I don't see
better.
any of that. I have chat, meeting settings. Maybe it's meeting settings. Let me see.
No.
Nope.
Hey, you're on your iPad, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Well, great. That's a great time to tell me that.
Well, I thought I told you that last time. We
You
talked.
might have. But last time I had just everybody on here. I didn't have this same problem.
Operator error.
Uh-oh.
Exactly.
And by the way, whoever mentioned the flag in the background, that was not by accident, but I am a little disappointed. I don't see a lot of scarlet and gray out there.
I think the flag is well placed over your shoulder.
Again, not by accident.
Exactly.
And just so you know, we're trying,
Oh, shit.
Janine's set up here. She's still having trouble.
I just emailed her it again.
Oh, my God.
But she's got all of the packet.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Oops.
Hey, Tracy, come here a minute.
Hey, Don, don't curse
Yeah.
on a live stream.
What'd I say?
I can't repeat it now.
We can't repeat that.
You can watch it later.
Okay,
You know you can mute yourself
I'll do that.
when the urge strikes.
Tracy,
I
did you
got-
break it?
I got a little technical help. I think I've got it fixed.
Really, Jonathan, you put on a tie? Did you have a tie on earlier? I don't think so.
No, I've been
Sorry,
on
guys.
opportunities.
There's Janine,
I'm here.
Jonathan.
I'm disappointed that
What did I
Director
do?
Sassen is not wearing a tie. I think it's the first meeting he's ever attended not wearing a tie.
Yeah, but he's decked all out in Clemson gear.
You're lucky I'm not still in my pajamas.
Thought about using one of the virtual backgrounds, but thought better of it.
Where'd Don go?
Virtual background behind them.
Who does? Oh, okay.
We lost Don.
Spencer, do we want to have Ryan kick off the meeting if we can't get Don back on?
I don't know. I just shot him a call and it didn't go through. So I sent him a text now also. I'm going to text his IT support Tracy as well. Hey, there he is.
There we go.
Okay, now. Okay, thank you.
Hey, just one quick thing for everybody too. If you're on mute, while you hold down your space bar, it does a temporary unmute. Then you let go of the space bar. So hold the space bar to talk and then let go of the space bar, it'll remute.
Have we found Janine yet? Yes.
Yeah, she's here. We're all here.
All right, we ready to go?
Let's rock and roll.
All right, here we go. I'd like to call this meeting of your Newark City Council, April 6, 2020 to order, 7 p.m. Janine, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Mr. Labutus,
Here.
Mr. Lang,
Here.
Mr. Marmee,
Present.
Mr. Rath,
Here.
Mr. Barker,
Here.
Mr. Blake,
Here.
Mr. Bub,
Here.
Mr. Fennell,
Here.
Ms. Hall,
Here.
We have all here or present this evening. Next on the agenda, we have the invocation by Mr. Blake.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a special audio prayer tonight from Pastor Josh Pennington from More Life Church. And so if you all just bow your heads and let's listen to the message from Pastor Pennington.
Hey, council members of the great city of Newark. I just wanted to take a minute and tell you how much I appreciate how you're leading our city through a just absolutely difficult season and time. And from one community leader to another, thank you for leading well. And Councilman, I would open the meeting or say a blessing over the time and our city. And so I'm honored to be able to do that. So if you would, if you're apt to pray, would you just bow your heads and join me in a word of prayer for our city? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your goodness in our life. And during these uncertain times, God, we rest on the certainty of your word. And I speak a blessing over every council member in Jesus' name. And we call them blessed. We say they're blessed when they come in, they're blessed when they go out, that your presence surrounds them. And God, that you are giving them wisdom, guidance, and direction, and helping them lead well. Father, I thank you for their leadership. I thank you for their love and passion for our community. And God, we just speak against any strife and any division that would try to come in to our city in this difficult season. And God, we say thank you in advance for bringing us through. And thank you for each one of these council members and for every city official. In the matchless name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Thank you for letting me pray over the meeting tonight. And I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thank you for your leadership. Keep leading well.
Thank you, Josh and Jeremy. That was great. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we have caucus. That's a time for council to discuss anything pertaining to the meeting tonight, to the agenda, plus a few other things. I've got a couple I'd like to go over, and I believe Mr. Marmee has something. One, we do have a public hearing this evening. Under that public hearing, we'll be discussing how you can call in to talk during the public hearing if you would like to join that. Also this evening, if you have any comments, there will not be citizens' comments. You could always email your council person with questions. Their email is all on the City of Newark webpage. Also this evening, for any legislation that passes through committees, the committee chairman will be listed as sponsoring that legislation. If you'd also like to sponsor it, if you'll give Janine a call, she could add your name to the list. And let's see, and then Mr. Marmee, I believe you have something.
Yes, during miscellaneous, I am going to ask council to reconsider resolution 2018. We're going to move some money around that was previously appropriated.
Thank you, Mr. Marmee. Do we have anything else? Okay, we'll move on to the minutes of our March 16th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Labutus,
Second,
and that second was by
Mr. Lang.
Mr. Lang. Thank you. I've got to toggle back and forth, so you'll have to be patient with me. All those in favor, please raise your thumb, signify by saying aye. Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. That passes. Thank you. We have 3 reports this evening from standing committees, one from finance, one from service, and one from street. Without objection, those will be received and filed. Reports from city officials, we have none this evening. We have one communication from Roger Loomis. Properties being sent to lien for past due water and sewer and stormwater bills. These are properties from last year that did not start after January 1. So these are from last year. Next on the agenda, we're going to have a public hearing. I believe Spencer's going to put up some information. Maybe. If you would like to call in, again, the number's here. Again, this is just for this public hearing. We're going to open the public hearing. If anyone would like to comment, please call 301-715-8592. And the meeting ID is 222-896-714. And the password is 039312. Thank you, Spencer. We're going to go ahead and open this public hearing. Janine, would you please read it?
Notice of hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Newark City Council shall at a later date to be determined and announced hereafter take action upon ordinance number 20-02 Said ordinance accepts a proposed amendment to the zoning map attached to ordinance 8-33A, which would allow the changing of the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 282 and 292 Wilson Street, City of Newark, Ohio, Licking County, from that of LC Limited Commercial District to Single Family Residence, RH High Density District.
Thank you, Janine. You've heard the reading of the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak for or against? Any council members or anyone from the public would like to speak for or against? Spencer, do we have anyone calling in? No, Spencer?
No, there's no one calling in.
Okay. One more time, anyone would like to speak for or against? Apparently Bella has something she'd like to say. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close this public hearing. Janine, would you read 20-02 for the second time?
Ordinance number 20-02, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 282 and 292 Wilson Street, City of Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of LC Limited Commercial District to Single Family Residence, RH High Density District, zoning code of the City of Newark, Ohio.
You've heard the second reading of 20-02. What is your wish? Please give me a
President,
hello or a thumb or something.
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath,
motion to adopt 20-02.
motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Bub. Is there any discussion on 20-02?
Mr. President.
Mr. Blake?
Thank you, Mr. President. I did receive a phone call last Thursday from Mr. Tim McDonald, who is who's working on these properties, and he's very much just wanted to pass along his thanks and gratitude for council taking care of this tonight. And so he appreciates that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Anyone else? Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
20-02 passes 10-0. Next, we're going to move on to ordinances on the second reading, 20-13. Janine?
Ordinance number 20-13, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and the director of public service to execute the supplemental revenue sharing agreement between the City of Newark, Ohio and the Newark City School District, attached hereto to clarify payments with respect to municipal income taxes established in existing tax increment financing agreements and revenue sharing agreements.
You've heard the second reading of 20-13. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmee?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 20-13.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmee.
Second.
Give me a thumbs up on who did the second. Second by Mr. Bub. Is there any discussion on 20-13? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker, Mr.
Yes.
Barker, Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bob,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
20-13 passes 10-0. Next, we go to ordinances on the first reading, 20-15. Janine?
Ordinance number 20-15. An ordinance accepting the dedication to public use of an 16-foot wide alley running south from Linwood Avenue, located east of O'Bannon Avenue.
20-15 will be held for a second reading. Now we move on to resolutions on the second reading, 20-05. Janine?
Resolution number 20-05 by Rath and Marmy, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to the City of Newark, Ohio to enter into a purchase agreement for the purchase of two 2020 marked SUVs for the Division of Police.
You've heard the second reading of 20-05. What is your wish?
President. I'd like to make a
Anyone?
motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second,
second by Mr. Barker.
Mr. Barker.
Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 20-05? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy,
yes,
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bob,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
yes,
20-05 passes 10-0. Next on the second reading, we have 20-19. Janine?
Resolution number 20-19 by Mr. Rath and Mr. Marmy, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to advertise for bids and enter into contracts subject to the appropriation of funds for various construction projects.
You've heard the second reading of 20-19. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 20-19.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second,
second by
Mr. Lang.
Mr. Lang. Thank you. Is there any discussion on 20-19? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy,
yes,
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
yes,
Ms.
Or Miss
Harris.
Hall. That would be Miss Hall, and Mr. Harris started, so that would be 10-0. Next, we got a resolutions on the first reading, 20-20. Whenever you're ready, Janine.
Okay, resolution number 20-20 by Mr. Rath. A resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to accept bids and sell certain surplus personal property now owned by the City of Newark, Ohio, and declaring that such property is no longer needed for any municipal purpose and declaring an emergency.
20-20 is on the first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
President,
Mr. Rath?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 20-20.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second,
second by
Mr. Barker.
Mr. Barker. I'm sorry, I'm toggling back and forth and I'm not quite catching the second, so sorry about that. Is there any discussion on 20-20?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
thank you, Mr. President. This has an emergency clause on it because we are selling items owned by the city in an auction. But in order to meet notification deadlines, we need to have advertising done in the Advocate. We need to meet their deadlines, and that's the reason for the emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. I know this auction is going to hopefully be May 16th is what Mr. Rhodes is working towards. And he's hoping that that will continue to be that date. Any other discussion? See none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy,
yes,
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
and Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Good job. 2020 passes 10-0. And finally, tonight, we have 20-21. Janine?
Resolution number 20-21 by Mr. Marmee, a resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
20-21,
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmee.
I make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on resolution 20-21.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmee,
Second.
second by Mr. Bub. Mr. Marmee?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. We need to expedite this. We have a couple payouts that we need to pay out as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Marmee. Janine, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Marmee?
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to adopt resolution 20-21.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmee,
Second by Lang.
second by Mr. Lang. Is there any discussion on 20-21? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
20-21 passes 10-0. And that concludes our legislation this evening. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to miscellaneous. Any city officials like to speak? Seeing none, except maybe Mr. Baum. Law Director Sassen. Nice flag, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will pass.
Thank you. Mayor Hall.
Thank you, President. I just want to thank everyone across the community that surely has worked very hard to follow the stay-at-home orders and social distancing and all the other complications that have come with this. But we really made some good headway. I know we have a ways to go, and I just ask everyone to be patient, be cognizant of your neighbors and your social citizens, and let's all work together, and we can come through this with shining stars. So appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Harris.
Like the mayor said, just everybody just be patient and hang in there. And let's just pray for one another and pray for our country, and that everything will get back to normal soon. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Labutus.
I just wanted to say thank you, obviously, to all the healthcare workers that are on the front lines, our first responders as well, fire, EMS, police, regardless of what happens, they're all in the thick of it, and they still have to do their jobs. So thankful for each of them for what they do, and thankful for the community coming together. Past 3 weeks have been kind of crazy, and come together and unify on this. So with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Labutus. Mr. Lang, when you grow up, you can, I'll show you how to grow a real beard. Mr. Lang.
I'll be sure to be clean shaven for our next meeting just for you, Mr. President. Yeah, so thank you. I just want to say it's nice to see everybody. It looks like everybody's healthy. Hope your families are healthy. And thank you everybody for being able to come together virtually so we can, not have to be physically together. And I'd like to thank Spencer, Mr. Barker in particular, because I think he did a lot of the legwork here to make sure this happened and minimize the risk to all of us so we can, keep our families safe. And I would like to reiterate Mr. Labutus's thanks to all the first responders. I guess I'd add the folks at all the daycares who are taking care of their kids who will be there as well. All the folks, the first responders and healthcare workers, and with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Mr. Marmee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to thank our city. And it's times like this when we really need to focus on, our top priorities, which are our safety forces and our infrastructure, making sure that that is maintained. So I want to thank the administration and all the city employees who are in particular focused on that. I greatly appreciate that. There's also a group within the community, the Licking County United Way. We're meeting every Monday morning, and it's a good group just to keep everybody in tune to the needs of the community, as well as just some of the different happenings within our community. There is a fund available that folks can donate to. 100% of those funds are going towards the COVID efforts. It's not going towards individuals, it's going towards different efforts. So the United Way is going to spread that where it's most needed within our community. So if you're looking for somewhere to donate, or you're hearing anybody who's wishing to donate, those funds are going to be dispersed across the community as far as where they're needed the most. So at this time, I would like to make a motion to reconsider Resolution 20-18, which is a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. There's a motion to reconsider from last meeting, 20-18. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lang. Mr. Marmy?
Thank you, Mr. President. The reason why we're going to reconsider this, we had some funds going towards the police vehicles, 119,000. With the flooding and everything else that occurred, there was some damage to some of the properties that the city owns and is responsible for maintaining. So what I would like to do is offer an amendment to move that 119,000 to building maintenance and grounds.
Okay. We have a motion to reconsider, which means at the last council meeting, if an ordinance or a resolution was passed, the next council meeting, someone voting on the prevailing side can make a motion to reconsider it, which Mr. Marmy has done. I believe we have to vote on the motion to reconsider first, and then we can vote on the amendment. And we have a motion to reconsider. And do we have a second? I'm sorry. Is there a second
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
motion or seconded. Yeah.
Second by Mr. Lang. Okay. Is there any other discussion to vote on? We're just going to vote on reconsidering it first. Okay. Janine, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
and Ms. Hall.
Yes.
So 2018 has been approved to be reconsidered. And Mr. Marmy, would you say your amendment again?
Yes, I want to make an amendment to move the $119,000 that was going towards police vehicles to be moved to the building maintenance and grounds account.
Is there a second on the amendment?
I'll second that.
And who was that? Mr. Barker?
I'll second that. It's
It was Mr. Bub.
Mr. Bub. Okay, Mr. Bub, thank you. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Mr. President?
Mr. Marmy?
Yes, we're not going to dismiss the police vehicles. What we're going to do is in 2 weeks, Director Rhodes is going to bring it to committee, Finance Committee. We're going to do a lease purchase for those police vehicles. So we're not replacing it. We need those funds immediately towards the building maintenance and grounds, and we'll take care of the police cruisers in plenty of time to get the new ones.
Okay, so we're going to do a lease purchase in 2 weeks to get the new police cars. This just moves the money so we can take care of the emergency situation. Great. Anyone else?
Mr. President.
And hang
Mr.
on.
Chairman.
Mr. Blake?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to offer my words of support for this. Director Rhodes has been phenomenal. Many of you may have read in the paper, but many of us down in the South End experienced flooding over the last few weeks. And more importantly than just the flooding, it's just been the cleanup and the repairs from that flooding that's occurred. And so, if you saw Don Edwards Park, how much water was down there, the South Newark Civic Association meeting house got damaged. And so it just caused a lot of issues down in Little Texas. So appreciate everyone's support, especially Director Rhodes for all his support and listening with residents and working with several other organizations and dealing with the flooding that occurred down here. So thank you for this, for bringing this back.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Anyone else? Janine, please call the roll to vote on the amendment.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
and Ms. Hall.
Yes.
So 2018 has been amended. Now, is there any discussion on 2018 as amended? Seeing none, Janine, call the roll to vote on 2018 as amended.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
and Ms. Hall.
Yes.
2018 as amended has passed. Mr. Marmee? Still
Thank you,
you?
Mr. President. I just want to wish everybody the good fortune of staying healthy and being safe. And I want everybody to have a very happy Easter. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Marmee. Mr. Rath?
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of things I wanted to say thank you to Brian Moorhead. He got the paving list out to us this year for the upcoming year. I'm sure that went out to everybody. It's a very aggressive list. And I wanted to thank him for that. Mr. Rhodes was very responsive, even though we were in the middle of a lot of flood issues. I had some issues in the third ward that he was very responsive to. He at least has responded to them. They haven't been resolved yet, but I have full faith that he will be having those resolved soon. Wanted to say thank you to Spencer for setting this up, being our IT guru. Wanted to give a shout out to the mayor for having the most useful IT tech tip with the space bar. That was awesome. And then also Janine, welcome to City Council. And you did a great job tonight. I want to give you some kudos for that. I know it's your first time, not under normal circumstances, but you don't know what normal is. But nonetheless, you did a great job. Congratulations. Well, I wish everybody well. And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Mr. Barker?
I just would echo all the other thanks everyone's given tonight, but also just add our grocery store workers. You know, they are keeping our community fed, our community stocked. And I know they are working around the clock for that. And just thankful for everyone that we were able to make these virtual meetings work. And we probably, you know, hopefully we can see each other in a month. But it looks like probably our next meeting will be this way as well.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Mr. Blake?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to just again say, in addition to the health crisis pandemic that we find ourselves in, you know, many of us found ourselves in another crisis in dealing with the flooding, and just how our city employees worked well to, you know, Roger Loomis and his team, Buster Prince and his team, Director Rhodes, I mean, everyone, and of course the safety forces. We most definitely had the police and fire down, having to evacuate Little Texas and getting notices out to people and things of that nature. And so that was it was just very a lot of gratitude was shown and a lot of cooperation. So just want to publicly say thank you to everyone who participated in that. And also Sean Grady with the Emergency Management Agency and Rod Cook with the Red Cross. They were in communication constantly, and many people are still recovering from a lot of damage from that. So we do have to pray and hope that people will be able to take care of their own damage at the properties that they received. But just as a team, I think everyone did very well. Want to welcome Janine. Welcome to your first virtual city council meeting, and hopefully we'll all get together soon to officially welcome you. So just want to welcome you to the team. And you and I have talked before this, and I think you're going to fit in quite well. So welcome to the city council. And just to want to share with everybody, glad to see everyone's faces. During this time, it's kind of hard being at home, but it's nice to see people's faces and hear people's voices, and wish you all the best with yourselves and your loved ones.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Mr. Bub.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to thank all of the first responders and workers in the healthcare field during these trying times. Thank you to the street department as well for all their efforts on the cleanup, and Service Director Rhodes for putting some dumpsters in the city so people could dispose of debris and trash due to the floods. Welcome to Janine as well. You did a great job. You've caught on very quickly. I'm very confident you'll do wonderful for the city. And finally, want to wish Mike Buskirk, who just retired from the Human Resources Department as the Director of Human Resources, best in his retirement. So didn't really get to see much of Mike the last couple of weeks. But if you're watching Mike, or if I see you soon, again, I'll congratulate you, but wish you the best in your retirement, and wish everyone good health, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bub. Mr. Fennell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to say hello to Janine. It is nice to kind of meet you, I guess, virtually meet you. So we look forward to meeting you in person once all of this is over. I too have to give a huge thanks to the city, Director Rhodes, and everybody who worked on the flood response. When I saw that come through, I couldn't believe that the city and everyone had to deal with that on top of everything that was happening. And to see that type of response was fantastic to see. And it is difficult, I think, everybody being isolated. But there's a lot of wonderful things happening, and oftentimes difficult times will bring out some of the best parts of our community, and I think that we have seen that. So I appreciate everyone who is out there, and all of our essential workers, and I hope that everybody stays as safe as they can when they go out, and I hope that everybody keeps their family safe and stays as sane as possible during this time. So with that, I will yield.
Thank you, Mr. Fennell. And Ms. Hall. It's good to see you, Ms. Hall.
Thank you. Same to you. I'm happy to see everyone. I too want to thank all the responders and our grocery help, and they've been wonderful. And most people are on their best behavior. There's a few out there that are a little bit grumpy, but Janine, great job tonight. Welcome to council. You're going to do fine. And I want to thank Spencer as well for all the work, getting this all set up. I'm here with David Rhodes and the mayor. This is wonderful that we could do this. So everyone have a nice, wonderful Easter, and be safe. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. I'd also like to add my thanks to everyone that's out there working so hard to keep all the rest of us safe. We certainly appreciate it. The hospital workers, city workers, just everyone that's really chipping in. Once again, Janine will be sending out committee minutes to the committee chairman. They will okay them. And when they okay them and send them back to her, she will send them to everyone else. So if you get them, you'll know they've been okayed by the committee chairman, so they won't have to come in and sign those. I'd also like to thank Janine. Did a nice job tonight. This is it gets easier, so hang in there. A very special thank you to Spencer for setting this up. You'll be happy that he's doing this and not me, because I thought my smoke signal idea was great, but nobody else really liked that. So Spencer, thank you so much for all your hard work on this. I think it went very well, went as well as could be expected. I'd like to say happy Easter to everyone. Stay well. Our next meeting will be April 20th. Again, it will probably be the same as this one at 5:45. We'll do committees, and then at 7 o'clock, we will do council. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Labutus.
Second.
Second by Mr. Barker. All those in favor, give me a thumbs up. Opposed, same sign. Thanks, everybody. Stay well. It's good to see you. We're adjourned.